Round 7 of the Wiesmann FIBT 4-man bobsleigh World Cup. And would you just look at the change in the weather overnight here at Königssee in Bavaria. After 2 days of non-stop snow races, today has dawned ice cold but clear and crisp. And in the mountains of the southernmost province of Germany, we are ready for the first of our 2 heats here at the oldest artificial ice track on the planet. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome wherever you're joining us. I'm Martin Haven, and I'm delighted to welcome back into the booth alongside me Olympic and world champion Kaylee Humphries. Kaylee, this is such a short track and so old, it's a real demanding track for the drivers.
It definitely is. It's one of those tracks that easier to get down, but very hard to get down fast. It is very short. The start makes a big difference, and you have to drive this track smooth and be clean in order to have a fast time. As you start off here, again, you're in the sled at this point, heading down. This first corner, although it's not a very big one, is critical. You have to come out of there clean, and you got to go down that straightaway before the beginning of S's with no hits, skids, or taps. Come in, S3 now, into S4. Again, you have to drive these corners smooth. That's the only place that you can really gain and or make up any type of speed or time going into the flatter section. Come out Jenner into Kreisel. Again, this is a huge Kreisel, does a full 360. You actually end up coming underneath yourself from where you go in above. You've got the tabletops here, which don't look like much, but can definitely cost you a lot of time and or be dangerous, as we saw yesterday with Heath Spence. Echo Wand, the big last corner, you got this straightaway, and these last 2 finish corners do go uphill, and so you're really trying to minimize as much damage as possible and have the smoothest, cleanest, fastest lines.
Nice smooth run from our camera sled there. Track record by Manuel Mahata in the World Championships here in 2011. Oscar's Melbard has set the 4-man start record in January 2012, 4.77 seconds. Melbard is taking the silver medal in yesterday's 2-man race behind winner Lyndon Rush of Canada. Well, it's Max Arndt who is our World Cup points leader in 4-man. He didn't race in the 2-man yesterday. German's junior world champion Francesco Friedrich did, but Max is back in the 4-man sled to hold his lead perhaps against Alexander Zubkov, Manny Mahata and the rest of them. Great Britain's John Jackson 5th in the World Cup rankings, in the top 10 in 2-man and 4-man. We've got a big field, Kaylee Humphries, 30 sleds.
We do.
It's a lot of muscle and carbon fibre to get down this track.
It is. This is the biggest field we have seen all year, and one of the biggest ones that I've ever commentated for.
Well, you saw what gives this track its name at the bottom there, the Königssee, the Royal Lake. And here, well, we are, 20 minutes from the Austrian border. Jürgen Loacker's Austrian fans are here, lots of Latvians, and a huge number of German fans. Well, air, minus 0.7. It said -4 on my car, so I'm going with that. It feels very cold and crisp, and the scenery, now that we can see it, now the cloud has lifted, is absolutely stunning. And Kaylee Humphries, it's great ice here always, but it's very cold. It's going to be very fast.
It is. The colder the air, usually, the harder the ice, which makes for faster run times. This is the hardest ice we've seen here in a very long time. Normally, it's raining or snowing, and they have to keep the ice a bit softer temperature-wise. Not much you can do trying to control the weather, and so the ice will be as hard as the outside air temperature is, which will make for faster times and, you know, a bit more fun.
And warming up on the tarmac area outside without slush and snow is always good news. So here's our start list. Max Arndt goes off first, Manny Mahata right behind him, Great Britain's John Jackson 3rd, the only one who's not a German in the top 4. Then Lyndon Rush, yesterday's winner, Alexander Zubkov 7th place. Stephen Holcomb gets number 10 draw as he did in the 2-man. With ice like this, probably not going to be too much of a deficit. Some changes around in the brakeman lineup for Russia, for the USA, for Canada as well. And look at the size of the field. 30 sleds, so fully 1/3 of everybody who's at the top now will not be at the top for Heat 2, because we go 20 sleds in Heat 2. So 1/3 of our field will be watching like everybody else. Ready to get underway. Round 7 of the Wiesmann FIBT 4-man bobsleigh World Cup. First sled on the ice, Max Arndt of Germany with Marco Hubenbecker, Alex Rödinger and Martin Putzer. I'm Martin Haven, Olympic champion. Kaylee Humphries alongside me. Kaylee, nerves jangling at this first start of the day.
It definitely is. You know Max is going to be chomping at the bit. Didn't compete in 2-man yesterday. He's switching out 2-man, 4-man. from with Francesco, but I know that these guys, great start, and you know, Max knows how to drive this track.
The track start record 4:77. He got away in 4:83. That's very quick. Great speed, 124 kilometers an hour, very nearly 125. That's 77.7 miles an hour.
As he comes through here, having a really, really nice run. All the guys, 4-man, number 2, 3, and 4, all sitting superbly, nice and tucked in there behind aerodynamic, great. 48.97 downtime. That definitely is going to be, you know, a hard one to beat.
Wow, that's 3/10 off the all-time track record. That's a very quick run. And Kaylee, you're almost silent there. It's hard to pick out any flaws in that run at all. He was so smooth.
It really is. That was a great run. Very nice to watch, actually. But as you can see here, you've got number 2, 3, and 4 guys sitting all nice and tight. You don't see him moving at all. The sled itself, a nice smooth line, no major waves. And again, he's controlling that pressure. That's how you take the speed with you for the bottom section.
Listen to the noise down at the bottom. The bleachers are full. The blue and white checkers, those are the colours of Bayern, of Bavaria, where we are at the moment. Next up, Germany's Manny Mahata. Alex Mann is at 2, Janis Becker at 3. Christian Poser, who pushed him in the 2-man, he's on the back handles of Mahata's sled. Mahata's 4-man skills have been in a bit of the doldrums recently. Big result here would really help.
Start time. That's a really good start time for Manny Mahata. Should be able to pull out a big one here. This is his home track. He knows this track better than anybody. World champion in 4-man here in 2011.
Yeah.
Perfect. Had a bit of a rough entrance there out of S4, and so caused a bit of a skid, a bit of a wobble down the straightaway, and yeah, it's going to be hard to catch Max.
Yes, it is. 700s behind at the start. A lot of work going on with the steering onto the straight. I'm sure we'll see that in replay. He's going to be quarter second back at the line. Nowhere to find speed here. You decelerate up to the line. 49.19. Well, this is going to be such a tight race, Kaylee. If you're 2 tenths away, now you might be outside the top 10 even by the end of the run.
Yeah, this track's notorious for having a very close run. You can see Manny knows that run was not ideal. Definitely, that straightaway is so critical to coming out and carrying the speed, and he hits and then causes a huge skid. You see him trying to turn those front runners, trying to straighten it out as fast as he can, but that whole first half of the straightaway going completely sideways. The ice is hard. It's going to be slick today. Very different conditions to how it was yesterday in the 2-man. And, you know, I think the guys know it.
Little bump down at the bottom there as well. Anytime you touch the wall that's not on the straight, you know you're losing speed. Third start draw for Great Britain's John Jackson. This is the A team back in action. Stu Benson, Bruce Tasker, and Joel, I'm not on Twitter, Fearon on the back handles of George, their 4-man. 5th in the World Cup rankings. A good race here would really boost Jacko's confidence heading towards the World Championships in a fortnight. Well, fast start is a 4:83 and Jackson doesn't get in, and it's going to be a disaster. 4:82, I mean, really quick, very powerful, but Jacko somehow managed to keep it off the wall. Kaylee Humphries, what does that do to a driver's calm and concentration?
Oh, that his heart is going to be racing like nobody's business. He tried to get in and struggled to get in basically right up until the very, very last second, and then he's got to jump in and try and bring his heart rate and everything down to have a good run. Nice Kreisel in and as he comes around there, but definitely that start, I mean, when you're trying to get your foot in and you've got 4 guys behind you, I mean, he was a kilometer down at the start, but it's very evident as to why. And, I mean, he did a fantastic job in getting in and getting down, and that corner, that very first corner was coming very, very fast at him, and you need to be on your D-rings and your steering rope by that first corner. That yeah, that was a disaster.
Well, just the start they didn't want. First time that the A-team have been back in action this season since the Christmas break. And for Jacko, well, you saw coming onto the straight the furrowed brow, but here's where it goes wrong. Foot catches, Kaylee.
Yeah, his foot catches and he tries to get it in and he can't get that left leg over, and you see him trying to get the other leg in, and he really, there's nothing to push against for that left leg for him to get it in. And that first corner is coming up quick. He's got to get in, push himself up on the seat, and then get both feet in and grab the D-rings and push the push bar down, all within, you know, that half a second that you have before that very first corner, which you have to be in by, or, you know, disaster will strike.
Fourth start draw, easy for me to say, for Thomas Florschutz of Germany. Andy Bredau, Kevin Kuska, and Thomas Blaszek on the Germany 3 sled. Down and in like a well-oiled machine, and a 4.86 to get away. They are not going to let their teammates get away with anything here.
63.8, really good start speed. I mean, fastest one we've seen, 64, so they're right up there.
Took the bronze medal last week in Altenburg, in Saxony. He is from the Altenburg region. That's the green colours of Saxony on the sled. 124.9, top speed, shared with Max Arndt.
These are big sleds, and you've got 4 big guys trying to get in at the very start, trying to take every little bit they can, especially on this track where you've got, you know, 48, 49 seconds. I mean, that's not a long track.
Yeah.
That's high speed, and it's for 4 big, huge dudes and little sleds. It's they make it look effortless, but trust me, there is a lot of time and practice that goes into this. Comes out of the straightaway. You see him there moving. The tops of his runners you can see moving there. He's really trying to straighten out the sled and not have any type of skid. Comes out of there, again, turns right at the last second in order to make sure that he doesn't get lifted pressure at the very end, but it causes a little bit of a skid right before the uphill section. So he's definitely going to want to correct that Echo 1 corner before run 2, but just slightly behind, you know, our winner right now, Max Arndt.
Well, Germany, 1, 2, 3 here in Königssee. What can this man do about that? Won the 2-man yesterday, 500s up in heat 1, raced away to a 4/10 advantage. Nearly as big a victory as Kaylee had in the women's race. Lyndon Rush has Cody Sorensen, Lascelles Brown, and yesterday's winning brakeman, Jesse Lumsden. Canada won.
And this is a new position for Jesse, being on the brakes of the 4-man. He's used to it on the 2-man.
Oh, Lascelles doesn't quite get in.
They're down and in, but sometimes that can happen. 43.6 start speed. I mean, sometimes you're going to have that, where you got number 2 and number 3. They're all trying to get in one after another, but one guy's a little too quick or one guy's a little too slow, and they end up just hitting each other on the shoulders. They're broad guys, they're huge guys, and that can happen. And with the force, you just end up bouncing each other off, and you really got to struggle in to make sure that everybody gets in the sled.
Second quickest speed into the Kreisel, 1700s back. He's right in amongst the Germans at the moment.
Lyndon knows how to drive this track. We saw it in the 2-man yesterday. Little bit of a skid there coming out of Echo. Nothing major, had a nice straightaway. 49.23. The start mishap is really, you know, what cost them and what they're going to have to change. But that puts him still in the hunt of everything, and we'll see what they have to say about that.
Well, the top 3 have started 2nd, 3rd, and 5th.
So as they come in here, you see Lyndon get in. Cody goes to get in number 2. King kind of trips, gets a little bit bounced out. He's a big dude. I mean, he struggles to get in. You see him get in, and all 4 guys, no problem, but the low definitely, you know, that causes a speed problem going into the first corner, and you really, I mean, you put so much effort and so much velocity into that sled, you want to be able to take that down into the first corner, and when you have any type of mishap, it really just takes it all away.
Nick Cunningham, USA 2. Justin Olsen, new to this crew at 2. And Dallas Robinson is back and fighting fit at 4. Andy Drabble at 3. That's their first start together as a team. Good getaway, 489. Fast start of 482, incidentally, for Great Britain's John Jackson, despite that long load.
Oh, big hit, huge skid all the way down that straightaway. That's going to absolutely kill his speed going into this Kreisel corner. And, you know, really there's no coming back from that. I think you're going to see it a little bit farther down, but you got to go straight in the straightaways. I know it sounds very cliche, but it's one of those things that you have a sideways skid. The ice is very different to how it was yesterday. It's very hard. The weight of the 4-man sleds are very big, and it just, you get any type of sideways motion and it's impossible to stop, and you just kind of got to ride it out. Pilot does everything he can, but you really hate when that happens. It's probably the worst feeling, and Nick knows it right there.
Yeah. And that, again, is probably a couple of hundreds late with the steer coming off the Kreisel, coming off the S's.
Yeah, it's very, very minimal. Comes across just that light tap, but he taps the front of the sled, then the back of the sled at different times, and it just sends the whole sled going completely sideways. Ice is hard, it's slick, and there's nothing you can do. There's no grip, there's no control. You have to be perfect and precise with those steers, or that, you know, that's what happens.
Then he hands him the split times. He doesn't want to know. It's all about that straightaway. Well, next up, Alexander Zubkov of Russia. Zubkov with 4 straight 4-man wins and a silver medal in the opening 5 races. Didn't come to Altenburg. Lost his 4-man World Cup points lead to Max Arndt of Germany. Is this where he tries to get it back? Can he claim win number 5 of the season?
And again, another pilot that starts at the bar. The Russians start at the bar on 2-man, but also in 4-man. You're going to see some of the guys that'll run from the block, some of them that start at the bar. And Zubkov is definitely one, always has, always will start at the bar.
484 getaway. You saw the bridge over the start area full of Russian jackets bellowing at him. And 64 kilometers an hour, that's equal fastest second corner speed.
Zubkov is definitely one to watch for. Comes out of that straight. Again, nice straightaway.
Wow, he's within a whisker of the lead and top speed, 125 kilometers an hour. Here comes the Russian rocket.
Had a great speed at the top, a nice straightaway. He's taken that all the way down into the bottom. He's ahead right now, and I mean, it's going to come down to this little straightaway here. Nails it, absolutely nails it. He'll be our leader for sure.
It's going to be a tiny margin, but he does lead by 0.06 of a second over Max Arndt, Thomas Florschut and Manuel Mahata. And despite the fact that he's pushed the Germans down into 2, 3, 4, still gets a big reception from this crowd at the bottom.
He does. Zubkov is definitely, you know, a force to be reckoned with. Consistency, he's been around for a while, but he knows how to drive that sled. Missing last week's race, you know he's coming for it again. He's gunning for it, and it's great to see. That was a very, very nice run. Comes down that straightaway. You see the runners just kind of hit the round part, but his bunks, the big things on the side, are not hitting the corner, and so therefore he's taken all that speed that they built at the start down into that straightaway with him.
Well, you can't get down the straight without tapping somewhere, and he did the best job possible there. Next up, his teammate Alexander Kazyanov, Ilve Hutzin, Max Belugin, and Peter Moiseyev are the crew. Kazyanov raced in the 2-man yesterday. Still got that strapped up right hand. Didn't seem to affect him too much in the drive. Again, a good start, 488, equal 5th fastest, just 400s behind his teammate Zubkov.
The Russians are really building a very, very strong program. We're seeing it kind of is starting in the 4-man. Light tap, comes across a few light taps, but he prevented a skid, which you'll take taps any day of the week. They're minor deductions compared to what, you know, we saw with Nick Cunningham. That's possible. Comes around Kreisel there, no major waves, no problems. Nice tabletops, chicanes, whatever you want to call them, and comes around this Echo-Wand here. That corner is very important.
Looking at a top 6 finish at the moment. 49.28 run, and that puts him into 6th position. So he's just ahead of John Jackson and Nick Cunningham. and just 0.05 of a second behind Lyndon Rush in 5th spot. So we've got Russia, 3 Germans, Canada, Russia, Great Britain.
S3 down into S1 into S2. Again.
Yeah.
I need to learn my corners.
They look so similar.
They look so different from this angle. S2 into S3, and again from here, S3 down into S4. This is the most critical portion of this track, is the S's. They're extremely, extremely hard in a 4-man. They're really, really tight, flowy, and you got to be able to take that speed with you.
Oliver Melbardis Oscars Melbardis rather, looked like he might take his first ever World Cup win yesterday. Heat 1, 500s behind Lyndon Rush. Couldn't keep the pressure on the Canadian and still took the silver medal. Now, what can he do in this 4-man? Damas Drieskins, Arvis Vilkasta and Intars Dambis are the crew of Latvia 1. Fast start is 4.82, his own record 4.77, 4.80.
These guys, 2-man, 4-man, I mean Latvia in general, they are heading up the starting section.
And they didn't quite have the momentum into the first corner of the 2 Russian sleds, and a big skid is really going to cost him.
Big skid. We saw it with Nick Cunningham. With Oscars here, it was kind of the reverse. Comes out of S4, and instead of hitting the wall, causing a skid, it was actually his driving and his steering. He had a bit too much pressure, tried to correct it, and he ended up causing that skid at the beginning of the straightaway.
He does seem to be finding more of a feel in the 2-man. There's so much weight to contain in a 4-man. 5th place, though, 49.23, right behind Lyndon Rush. In fact, not right behind Lyndon Rush, this time tied with Lyndon Rush.
Yeah, I mean, Oscars, it's just a matter of time before he figures this out. 2-man, yeah, it's a bit easier, weight's a little bit less, but even in 4-man, it's just little tiny things. He's still a very new pilot. This is still only year 3 for him, and he's figuring it out race by race. It's an amazing progression to see, and as he figures it out, I mean, he's just going to get higher and higher up the list and harder to beat.
Alexander Zubkov, your race leader. 9 of our 30 sleds are down. We're nearly a third of the way into the field. Russia, Germany, Germany, Germany is your top 4. What can Stephen Holcomb do about that? The 4-man Olympic champion, the 4-man world champion, with Kurt Tomasevich, Steve Langton on the sled, joined by Chris Vogt now on the back handles. It's a little bit of a change around. Justin Olsen from the night train going into the USA 2 sled with Nick Cunningham.
And I know Holke was not happy with his runs yesterday. Bit of a wrong runner choice, if I read correctly on Twitter. And he's going to be definitely looking for revenge today.
Well, nobody will be going with fat runners for the snow today. That is for certain. You'll be going with your cold, icy St. Moritz-style runners. 100th up over the leader at the start and starting to pull away. Yeah,
tied the start speeds for, 2 of the top teams. Comes down to the straightaway, nice straightaway, no issues.
We had great momentum in the first few corners, drop behind out of the S's. 123.4, that's not enough. Not going to challenge for the lead here. Wow, gone from 300s to 2400s back, Kaylee.
Yeah, this is frustrating.
Yeah,
confusing.
Definitely.
I'm watching it, trying to figure out how or why.
Well, a couple of rattles on the straightaway certainly didn't help. He may have just been working too hard on the steering through the S's to keep the sled under control, because he certainly had better momentum getting into S3 and S4.
He definitely did, and a not great but not bad straightaway, just no speed and time near the bottom.
Well, the one speed trap we have is at the end of the bendaway, that curving 3-corner straight section. Again, this is the first time this 4-man crew has competed with these individuals together, so...
It is. You've got Chris Vogt in there instead of Justin Olsen, but no major issues. I mean, they're down, they're in, 483, good start time, and you saw from that first clock, 64 kilometers out of that first corner. I mean, that ties for the fastest start. The crew did their job at the beginning.
Yeah, that was down to Holcomb needing to tidy up that straightaway, I think. Next up, Beat Hefty, the new Swiss champion in 2-man and 4-man. Alex Baumann, Thomas Lamparter and Jörg Egger. Look at the speed of those legs. 487.
Again, as close as the down times are, you have just as close starting times. Everybody's within, you know, a couple hundredths of a second. It really comes down to that starting speed and the velocity.
Good exit onto the straight, but a triple tap perhaps is going to rob him of too much speed. 124, fastest we've seen 125s.
About a kilometer down.
He's pulling himself back into contention. He was 10th out of the S's, Kaylee. He's 9th on split times, and he's still got speed on board. Oops, that's not helping. Back down to 10th, perhaps.
You don't want to tap on that straightaway before these final last 2 corners before they go uphill.
9th place stays in front of John Jackson and Nick Cunningham, neither of whom had the best of fortunes. It looked like he came on to the straight okay, but just didn't quite take the taps the way that he would have wanted.
No, definitely not. I think in the 4-man, those taps, anytime you tap, it's not ideal. Better than a skid, but again, you want to clean those up. He was really high off C-curve going into Echo 1 there, and in a 4-man, that comes down to weight, and you hold it a little too low, pressure's going to take you up at the end. He had a bit of a hit out of Echo 1 as well, and that straightaway does start to go uphill at that point.
Alexander Zubkov, your race leader, from Max Arndt and Thomas Florschutz. 10 sleds down, 20 still to come here in Königssee, Bavaria. Round 7 of the Wiesmann 4-man Bobsleigh World Cup. Jürgen Loacker with a big Austrian fan club from just a few miles away over the border to support him. Only the 12th fastest start so far, a 5:02. Everybody in front of him, Kaylee Humphries, has started sub 5 seconds. That's all part of the problem for the Austrian driver.
It definitely is. I mean, that 2/10 behind at the beginning, and especially on this track, it is short. It is a 50-second track. There isn't enough time or track. You just run out. No matter how good of a pilot you are, when you are that 2/10 behind at the start, it's very hard to come back from.
He still had decent speed. Austrian sleds are always very good when the speed numbers are high. They don't look particularly fancy in their profiles, but clearly the aerodynamics really work. 11th place, 49.56. Well, that puts him behind Great Britain's John Jackson, who rounds out our top 10, and in front of Nick Cunningham of the USA.
It was a very nice drive by Jürgen Loacker. That was probably, you know, yeah, very nice.
He's such a smooth touch on the D-rings that control these sleds.
Comes around here, comes out of S4. You see him turn those runners. He's really trying to just straighten it out and cause a skid, and that time it worked. Prevented a hit from the wall and prevented a skid to go straight down the straightaway.
Tiny little reflex twitches. Big crowd here appreciating their bobsledding in Berchtesgaden. Next up is Russia 3. Now, Alexei Stulnev drove Russia 3's 2-man. Dmitry Abramovich is their 4-man choice, with Denis Moishenkov, Dmitry Stepushkin and Alexei Pushkarev on the crew.
And again, this is a pilot that we see only in 4-man. Didn't compete in 2-man yesterday. I believe he's switching with Strulnev, their Russia 3 2-man pilot. And so really just, I mean, it shows to the depth of the program when you've got that many athletes and you can switch, so you're putting your best people forward in 2-man or in 4-man. That's a strong program.
Well, he's the 2007 Junior World Champion. Stulnev took the silver in this year's Junior World Championship, Eagles Austria, just before Christmas. Clearly the coaches feel, has a better touch in the 2-man. 124 kilometers an hour, not bad speed. Again, that's a sort of 15 to 20 kind of pace. Oof. A little rocky there through the little low labyrinth. Started 12th, Kaylee. He's in 10th at the moment, so clearly he's driving this very nicely.
He is. He's having a really nice run. 49.50 down time.
Saw the coach Pierre Luders, familiar figure. Former Canadian pilot, of course, and now coaching for the Russians. And it's the first time, really, that the Russian men have had a top-flight ex-driver to teach them how to drive.
It is. It's a loss for Canada, but definitely a gain for Russia. And it's awesome just to see that, you know, bobsleigh is a family, and it is, you know, regardless of what country and where you come from, you know, the experience that you have, that you develop and you build, stays within the sport, and that's great.
Change of man on the Canada 2 sled. Tim Randall's had to pull out this morning because he's not fit. So Luke Dimitri, a late addition at 2 behind Chris Spring. Ben Coakwell and Neville Wright complete the crew. And again, this is the first time these 4 guys have pushed together in competition, I think, ever. Dimitri hasn't raced for the last couple of weeks, drops in behind. It's a 4.94 start.
Very high on S1 in through there, but doesn't seem to be affecting S2 or S3. Again, comes out a little bit of a tap out of S4, and you see Chris really trying to kind of cha-cha-cha with the runners to bring it back to prevent a skid. The ice is hard, and it is going to skid, especially with the weight of these 4-man sleds down that straightaway. So the pilot does what he can, and that's all instinctual. All those little tiny changes and being able to make those adjustments on the fly, it's something that you have or you don't, and it's what, you know, defines a good pilot versus, you know, just the average one.
Our 13th place run, 49.90. And Chris Spring's big highlight of the season, bronze medal in the 4-man in Whistler when we finished our North American swing. Kaylee Humphries sitting alongside me in the booth as her teammates help with the crew at the bottom.
A little bit close to that right wall. I'm not sure if he's rubbing or tapping, and again, I mean, there you go. He just hits, you get pushed low in that S1, and he goes super high there. He's the highest lines, and that causes a huge cross down into S2. Especially at the very beginning of this track, you can't have issues like that. You can't have those little tiny mistakes, because that's, you know, a couple tenths on this short track.
Next up is Swiss 2, 15th of our 30 sleds. We are halfway through the field. Thomas Ruff, Patrick Blöschlinger, and Simon Friedli are the crew. Rico Peter, highlight so far this season for him was 6th position finish in La Plagne. That's his best 4-man result in a while. Didn't race at all in the World Cup last season. Alex Baumann and Bert Hefty were the drivers. 4.96 getaway.
Come out, big hit there on the left out of S4. Causes him to come across, hit hard on the right, down the straightaway. You're really just trying to minimize damage at that point, but he'll want to definitely clean that up for run 2. And
well, Katie, you could hear the noise of the tap, and that is all energy, and if it's energy coming away from the wall, it's coming out of the sled. That's what slows you down.
It definitely is. You don't want to hear those big taps. They sound bigger, and they don't feel so nice in the back of that sled either, I can tell you that, but that's all, you know, tenths of a second that just melt away on this track. You don't want to hear those taps on this track. You want to be going straight, and it should look smooth. You can see on some of the corners, it looks kind of like rails. You can see the lines in the sleds time and time again that have gone over the exact same lines. You want to be within those, not above them, not below them, anything. You can see the lines from the sleds beforehand, comes across there. I mean, Rico Peter did a good job. He just drove it down too hard, too long. Comes across, hits that wall, sends him across, and you just end up ping-ponging the rest of the way down.
Well, you know what? Despite that, he was 100th of a second quicker than Swiss 1's Bert Hefty, so Hefty had some errors as well. Simone Bertazzo of Italy next up. Simone Fontana, Constantino Ughi, and William Frulani are the crew. Again, 2 new big Italians in this 4-man this week for the first time. Well, that's helped there, sub 5 seconds. That might be the first time we've seen a top 15 start from Simone Bertazzo this season. Bertazzo had a big 4-man result last week, 7th place in Altenburg. Not in a field of this size, though. 1:23.4, not the greatest speed, Kaylee Humphries.
No, he knows, Simone knows how to drive. He's been on this track time and time again, experienced 4-man guy as well as 2-man guy. Their biggest disadvantage comes at the start. I mean, they're 1.5 kilometers back at the start with the start speeds, and especially on this track, but the start is crucial nowadays.
Well, 49.87 for all that massive slide that Nick Cunningham had. Potazzo only 300s in front of Cunningham and Chris Spring, who are tied together in 15th spot at the moment. So Cunningham was beating himself up for that. Oh dear, look, one of the guys limping away from the sled. That's not good news.
It's not good. Comes out, gets a little bit high on that second tabletop. Nothing dangerous.
Well, see the guys limping away. I don't know if he's been spiked or if he's got cramp or maybe tweaked something, but that might be a replacement brakeman for the next heat. Well, 17th sled is Milan Janaszak, Martin Tezovic, Vladimir Simic and Adam Zavacki are the crew. Milan, the least youthful. Actually, that's not fair. He's not the least youthful. He's as useful as all the others. He just happens to be 43 years old.
And looking great for it, I must add. That it's impressive, actually, and a great guy on top of it. Like I said yesterday, you saw him down there helping the Koreans, trying to draw diagrams. Get in, get in, get in!
Oh, and this is actually really quite dangerous for the crewman, because unless he gets in, he could end up getting spat out somewhere where there's really no protection. Luckily, Martin Tezovic and Vladimir Simic get in.
That is, yeah, that's commitment. They're doing everything you can to get in. All 4 guys have to get in the sled in order to not be disqualified. So you do everything you possibly can. You've got the brakeman, number 2 guy, trying to get out of the way, allowing that number 3 guy to get in. And yeah, I mean, you always just, everyone ends up holding their breath, hoping that
absolutely
they do get in. They did. The pilot definitely at that point, though, I mean, you can feel it. You feel the sled moving around. You know you guys are not in behind you. They're not settled down and in their positions. And it's always nerve-wracking because you can't see anything and you just have to hope for the best.
Yeah, hope that there are 3 guys getting out behind you. And look, there's Martin Tezovic trying to get out. Vladimir Simic was the guy at 3 who really struggled, almost went in upside down. And he's going to be very sore as a result of that. Well,
you see him go, pilot jumps in, number 2 guy goes, gets on the bail, 3 guy strung out a little bit, goes to run, and his foot just slips off the bail. And at that point, you're moving, and you can't just put your feet down. He tries to kind of keep running, get his feet underneath him just enough to be able to jump in. And you've got the corners there, you're getting bumped around. 3 guys trying to get in and out of the way, trying to move. They all luckily get in safe and sound, but that is very sketchy.
Canada 3 now, Justin Cripps, James McNaughton, Jean-Nicolas Carrière and Sam Giguère. 2 French-Canadians on the back of the sled, and James McNaughton has trouble dropping in.
Again, you gotta, everyone, you know, everyone's responsible for themselves at the same time. Everyone's responsible for each other. And especially in 4-man, it's a team event and working together, all 4 guys being consistent. I know these guys have really bonded, really tried to, you know, build a team. You see them out there doing dry loads every single day. And they're all working. They're all football guys, actually.
Yeah.
2, 3, and 4, so.
Well, the guy at 2, James McNaughton, it has to be the last to sit down. 4 and 3 have to get down first, and then he's got room to get in.
They do. I know these guys were really close to wait even this morning. They got up at 7 a.m. and came to the track with their sled to make sure. So the run is done. Now the hard part begins for them, and I know that they've been rationing food and water and all of the above. There is a maximum weight that the pilot, crewman, and sled can weigh. So I just hope that they, you know, have all done it. I know that they were fine this morning. They were a couple kilos under, so I'm sure that.
I hope that there's no pulled muscles away. I mean, this is the other thing, you know, trying to haul yourself into a sled when you miss a step. You can easily pull muscles.
Easy, 100%.
Cripps is in, and James McNaughton still stood up right behind him. He's got to wait for 3 to drop in, Jean-Nicolas, and then he gets down and in. The
number 2 guy's the first guy get in, followed by 3 and 4, but then it works backwards. 4 guy sits down, then the number 3 guy sits down, then the number 2 guy sits down. So it definitely is a team effort, and when you're standing beside the track, you can hear them yelling.
Silver medal in the Junior World Championships before Christmas for Oskars Kierbamanis of Latvia. This is his World Cup debut weekend. Raced in the 2-man yesterday, 4-man today. And a big start at 4.92 again. There's a lot of muscle to get into a very small, restricted bobsled. Seeing a lot of crews struggling with that.
Definitely is. This start is very short, and it does drop off, and it does take speed, and you know, you're going to see the consistent guys, the guys that have practiced time and time again, be able to do it and make it look easy. And you've got some of the inexperienced guys, some of the younger guys that are definitely going to struggle, and nothing can go wrong. If one thing is slightly off, that's when, you know, issues and errors happen.
14th place run at the moment, off a 13th fastest start. This kid has only been racing for 2 or 3 seasons. I think this is season number 2 for Kierbamanis. Sanders Bruce is the coach.
He's definitely going to be one to watch out for. He's got a lot of room to improve, not only as a young pilot, but also as a young bobsledder. And
yeah,
very impressed with what I saw yesterday in the 2-man and 4-man here today, and give him a couple more years in the sport and driving.
A couple more years before he can go to Lake Placid and have a beer in zigzags. He's only 19 years old. Started driving 2011. Charming young guy with his English skills about as good as his driving at the moment, really polished.
Comes in, a few little mistakes, a little bit high there. He's trying to sort it out. I mean, catch that second pressure to prevent a wave. You want a smooth line, nice line. You don't want to have the pressure take you up and then lose it where you drop around the corner. But he did a very good job.
Lamin Dean of Great Britain with Henry Nwume, Jim Galvin and Andy Matthews on the GB2 sled. This is second World Cup race of the season, 17th last week in Altenburg. The big target now for GB2 will be to make the cut here in a massive 30 sled field. 496 getaway, 16th position. If he can drive himself into 16th now, that gives him a really good chance of making cut for Heat 2.
Again, another big skid. It's one of those ones, I mean, Lamin doesn't have the experience that a lot of the top guys have. So although he got the big skid, he just kind of rode it out, and he's doing what he can just to make sure to consistently think ahead. Pilots are always thinking ahead, corner after corner. Those tabletops were really rough in through there. That big hits, big skids, and he's really just trying to hang on at this point. Down
to 19th place at the moment. This is going to mean some fairly nervy times for the British coaches. 49.96 slide for Lamin Dean. That skid on the straightaway, but most importantly, perhaps, that lower labyrinth rattling from wall to wall to wall. That will have taken speed out of the sled. He shakes his head. He knows that there was better still to come.
Comes out of here, S3 into S4. No major issues, light tap on the right. Comes out of Kreisel there, drops out of the corner a little bit, loses pressure. You get a little too high, pushes all the way around. The back of the sled lifts off, shoots over, nails that left wall before going into Kilstein. Again, we saw Heath Spence in 2-man crash there, and with the pressure and the weight of 4-man, anything is possible.
Well, next up for Poland, the 21st sled. We already have 20 safely down, so the race is full. From the remaining 10, you have to bump somebody to get into the race. First up with that task is David Kupczyk, Poland 1. Now, anything above a 5-second start is really going to leave you with too much work to do. They get a 4.99 getaway, Kaylee.
They do. Again, these S's are extremely critical, especially in a 4-man. Those are very, very tight transitions. This is a luge track built for lugers with a lot more control, a lot less weight. And, you know, their sleds are a lot smaller. So we're really, you know, you're trying to take every little advantage that you can out of this track. And there is tons of points on this track where you can just lose. That's about all you can. And the only place to really gain is at the start.
Up to 17th place on split times from an 18th fastest start. Now he's 16th. This is a neat looking run at the bottom of the track for the Polish veteran, 49.76. And that leaves him in 16th spot and pushes Milan Januszek out of the race. After the disastrous start for Slovakia, that's possibly not a surprise. The poles are in. There are 4 sleds behind him.
Should be enough to qualify him for a second run, but we'll see. We still have some top names coming up behind him, so anything is possible.
Yeah, we've got 2 Dutch sleds. We've got the French, the Aussies, USA 3, Corey Butner still. Yeah, and the last to go will be Monaco, so nothing is written in stone just yet. If you're above 15th, you might be feeling relatively relaxed. If you're 15th or below, you're going to be watching the screens. Well, here is our Korean team. Again, 2 new brakemen coming in this week for Korea. Behind Yoon Jong-won. He made his World Cup debut in Whistler last season. And up until this stage, all of the Korean drivers have been sliding in North America. So every track now is brand new, Kaylee. And that means so much learning at such a high rate.
It does. I mean, everything's accelerated. You have 6 runs, and generally you're taking 4 of those in a 2-man. So really, they've probably had maximum 2 or 3 runs in a 4-man down this track. You're trying to learn the track, learn the feeling, do exactly what you see, and make the right timings all happen at the same time. It's a huge challenge, and definitely one. That's where, when I say it takes experience and time to build a really good bobsleigh pilot, I mean, 6 or 8 runs down a track, sharing 2-man and 4-man. It's not a lot of runs, and he's doing an amazing job so far.
And giving away a good 15 years of experience to the guys at the top of the field. So really, 21st at the start, going to be really hard-pressed to make the field, doesn't quite squeeze in. And maybe now, if they want to really push on the development, Kaylee, it's time to go hunting for a Pierre Luders or a Christoph Langen or somebody who really, really knows how to drive, to bring the pilot on, because you can train the brakemen, you can get them bigger, faster, fitter.
It really comes down to the driving here. Comes out of S4, has a bit of a skid, does what he can to control it. And again, it's Scott. He goes into these tabletops here, just nicks that right wall, sends him over to just nick. He almost squeezed by. It's those little tiny things that, you know, a coach at this point, I mean, at any point, it's a good thing to have.
Next up for Serbia, Vuk Radjenovic. For Stegel, Nikolai Milinkovic and Damian Zlatnar are the crew. And after having trouble with leg muscles most of the season, Vuk was telling me yesterday or day before, fully 100% fit now and raring to go. And like Slovakia, like Belgium, another tiny national team that is essentially almost uniquely what you see on screen.
Had a little bit of trouble there right as the grooves ended at the start and right by the loading portion. So shouldn't affect them too bad, but every little bit on this track makes a difference.
Well, 20th fastest start at 5:02. They've slipped a little to 21st. If he gets a good exit to the Kreisel, he could push his way into the race. Lamin Dean of Great Britain is in 20th at the moment. Of our 30 starters, only the fast 20 go through to Heat 2. Now he's up to 18th place. He is in the race. If he can keep it neat to the line, 17th. He found speed at the bottom. Again, Kaylee, there are so many different elements of this track that carry speed in that lower portion, and suddenly you can pick up 2 or 3 spots.
Definitely does. You got to fight right to the bitter end. The last 2 corners go uphill, and a lot of pilots start to relax at that point. A lot of people, the danger is over, but you know, it's not over till you cross that finish line. Loading in at the start, all 3 guys down and in, but it looks like he just didn't quite have the D-rings, comes across and just hits that wall just before. And again, that's hundredths of a second, but on this track, every little bit makes a difference.
Alexander Zubkov of Russia leads the race from Max Arndt, Thomas Florschutz and Manny Mahata. And we are now down to sled 24 of 30, and after hobbling into the 2-man yesterday, as he suggested he probably would have to, Edwin van Kalker sitting in at the start in Netherlands 1. So lots of work for Arno Klaas and Sieben Jansma on your own pick. Not only are they pushing a sled that's 100 kilos heavier, but they're 1 man down as well at the start. 5:09 is therefore a highly commendable getaway for 3 men pushing an over-heavy sled.
Yeah, that's a really great start. Not even one of the slowest we've seen, and you've got 1 guy, A, that's just dead weight in the sled, but B, not contributing a single thing. And so, I mean, that just shows that, you know, this Dutch team is, you know, a great starting team.
Well, he was 23rd at the start, up to 21st, 124 kilometers an hour. If he's injured and can't push, why is he bothering? Well, because every position will bring him points. And at the moment, he is in the race. This is 19th place. And he could pick up more, 17th place. Is he going to end up in 16th position? What a run from Edwin van Kalker. When the pressure is on, he finds the speed. And Kaylee, he sat in, so he didn't have that huge boost of adrenaline. He was in the zen zone even before the sled left the blocks. Maybe that was what he needed to really find that drive.
Maybe, and it's, you know, you never quite know. It doesn't have to get amped up at the start, but you know that adrenaline and you know those butterflies are going to be here. It's race day. Everybody's got it, and in order to drive well, in all fairness, I believe you need it. So I know he's feeling it. You know, and that was a great drive and a great run. So they'll definitely, you know, hopefully have a second run for sure.
Looks like they might. Tied in 20th, Nick Cunningham of the USA and Chris Spring of Canada, as Dorian Alexandre Grigore of Romania gets to the blocks. Had really nice runs in yesterday's two-man race. Most smooth and impressive down the track. And last weekend in Altenburg, 14th place, which I believe is a career high in four-man. Again, trying to bust into the race here. Start draw number 25. 25 on the sled, that's last year's overall four-man ranking as well. Kenny Humphries, 5:05 getaway, 22nd place. As he sits down, he's already out of the race. Puts a lot of pressure on.
It definitely does. And a straightaway like that and having that huge skid does not help. And, you know, he's got a lot of work to do to build himself up in the top 20 to even get a second run. There's 30 sleds this race, and it's a huge field. One of the biggest we've ever seen in the sport, which is so great to see, but it makes the job for the pilots, especially these last couple. It puts the pressure on for sure.
He slipped down to 23rd place. That long skid onto the straightaway means he didn't have much speed. So Nick Cunningham, Chris Spring are still joint 20th as a 23rd place finish for Dorian Grigore of Romania. Well, he couldn't find the touch this morning that he had in the two-man yesterday, which comfortably saw him qualifying for the second heat. And 23rd, he will be a spectator, joining Lamin Dean, Yun Jung Won and Milan Janishak.
Again, comes out, has that huge skid, just the couple taps on those bunks down the straightaway, and it just, with this hard ice today, it's hard, it's fast, it's extremely hard to control, and you know, the sled just kind of goes wherever it wants, and experience as a pilot helps you straighten that out, but sometimes it's just nearly impossible.
Loic Costerg of France having a good season so far. 10th in the four-man last week in Altenburg. Romain Heinrich, Florent Ribet and Jeremy Bouterin. Yesterday with Romain behind him, didn't make the cut in the two-man race. Again, that was a 31 sled field, 5:02 getaway.
Push bar is stuck out, and you see the brakeman trying to grab it and push it in. There'll be a button on the side that he's got to kind of push. If it doesn't go in, you saw him reach out and really try and grab that. Again, it's not good to have a push bar out, A, aerodynamically, B, it's dangerous. A, people on the side of the track, you see it hit the short walls, that's just going to slow him down. It's going to end up pushing and or breaking that push bar off.
Well, it looks like they're going to have a week to repair it, because I don't think this is going to see them into the second heat. 20th at the start, down to 24th place. Can't quite find the touch that he had last year, and again, that's dragging all the way along the wall there, Kaylee, and that's just a break.
Yeah, it really is. You see that push bar out, and it hits the walls, it hits the side. Anytime it hits, I mean, that's tenths of a second just eating away, and numerous times down the track, 50-33 downtime, you know that push bar has everything to do with that.
Yeah, 24th place for Loic Costerg. He was telling me that they need to get another top 15 finish in here or Eagles to get to the World Champs. I'm afraid it's not happening here.
Not going to happen here. He's got the experience in the drive, and you see them. They all get in. The brakeman looks. One push bar goes down. He looks again. Can't get over. Can't get it in. Around this whole first corner, he's really trying to get it in, but the whole entire way down comes across. It'll hit the wall there, and so it just hits in a few spots every now and then, and that can cause the sled to go in different directions, which is dangerous, and or it can just, you know, break off, and who knows.
Well, next up is a very sore Heath Spence after a two-man crash yesterday. Gareth Nichols joins he and Ben Lisson with Lucas Mata on the back handles. He's had a lot of people contacting him this morning already saying, hey, Guy, you're on the news yesterday. Well, news loves a bit of crash and gore, don't they? He's determined to put that behind him and get a good run in Bruce 2. This is a newer sled. Less elderly, perhaps, would be a slightly better name for it.
Ooh, hung it high on S4 there and just had to kind of haul it off. That can almost be dangerous. He'll be heading into Kreisel here. I know nerves are going to be high as he gets closer and closer to those tabletops, which is where he crashed yesterday, and in 4Man, they're just made that much more difficult. Again, no major issues there. Had a big hit, but again, didn't drive it up the wall and came out nice.
27th start, 26th place. Little rattle on the end of Ecovant. And final corner up to the line, a 50.77. Coach Aaron Glass knows that these guys, like everybody else here, are giving their heart and soul, and nobody here is just meandering around aimlessly. Whether you're first or last in this field, Katie Humphries, you know that every single person here is sacrificing a lot to do what they love.
They really are. It's the passion and the drive in the sport, and they're tough as nails. They're really trying to do everything they can all the time. And
you know, the guys in these smaller nations, they're not getting paid, just the opposite. They are spending their own money to do this.
They really are. And
they love it as much as everyone else.
Yeah, he's down there. He's just celebrating, happy he got down all in one piece, and it was a decent run considering.
Corey Butner next up for USA 3 with Jesse Beckham and Adam Quinn joining he and Adam Clark joining he and Johnny Quinn, who were in the two-man yesterday. Again, lots of football athletes here in this US squad. I know some of Johnny Quinn's friends and family are up at ridiculous o'clock in Texas to watch this, a 4:95 getaway, and that is a 16th fastest start. These guys, by rights, should be in the field with no major dramas.
Decent start speed as well, not the fastest that we've seen, but up there and amongst some of the best, so put themselves in the best position possible. Decent straightaway, comes out of there, a few little taps, but again, no major issues.
Well, unless they tie exactly with Nick Cunningham and Chris Spring, they will bump USA 2 out of the field if they make it in, and they're 14th at the moment.
Everything's going to come down to this corner right here, how he comes out. Late tap on the wall, but again, no major skid, nothing going into these two uphill corners in the last section. He's 15th place, 49.60 down time.
Well, mixed emotions for the coaches, for Brian Shimer and Mike Kahn, because in goes Corey Butner, out goes Nick Cunningham. USA 2 will not get a second heat, nor will Chris Spring in Canada 2. They were tied for 20th, now tied for 21st. Simone Batazzo in 20th place is the man in the eye of the storm at the moment, as Alexander Zubkov leads still from Max Arndt, Thomas Florschutz and Manny Mahata. We've got 2 to go here in Berchtesgaden in Heat 1 of 2 in the 4-man bobsleigh. Martin Haven and Olympic and world champion Kaylee Humphries watching the final couple of sliders in this first of 2 heats. Round 7 of the Wiesmann FIBT 4-man bobsleigh World Cup. Ivo de Bruyne of the Netherlands wants to join teammate Edwin van Kalka in Heat 2. He's got to get into the top 20. And again, that means a sub-5 second start time for this second Dutch crew. 5:22 leaves Ivo with a lot of work to do, Kaylee.
Yeah, that's not a great start. I saw him this morning track walk with Heath Spence and Chris Spring, and so, you know, hopefully he can drive his way a little higher than the other two have.
Well, at the moment, off a 29th start, he is clawing his way up the order, 27th onto the straightaway, 122.4, not the greatest speed, though, in his Eurotech sled. Still 27th, a long way still to climb. Little tap there, pretty much the final nail in the coffin. He's 26, but he's not going to suddenly vault to 20th. 50.47 slide for the young Dutchman.
A lot of that came down to the start. 5:22 is way off the pace at the start, and unfortunately on this track, as in most tracks, but especially this one, the start makes a big difference.
Only his third 4-man World Cup race. Best result 19th in Winterberg just before Christmas.
See these guys, I mean, the number 2 guy on the bell early, just not quite super comfortable yet. As a team, not comfortable, but in the positions that they are, and that's just going to take time and more experience.
Our final sled in the first of 2 heats here in Königssee, Bavaria, is Monaco. Patrice Seville, Elie Lefort, Sébastien Gattuso and Thibaut Desmontant are the 4-man crew of Monaco. Again, looking for a 5-second or below start for Seville, and it's a 5.10. Now, a tenth of a second when you're sprinting downhill on ice, Kaylee, to the normal person sounds like nothing at all, but here it's a big margin.
A very big margin, especially on this track. Bit of a problem there in S4, and again, a huge skid all the way down that straightaway. He's going to have a very hard time being able to move up and even qualify for a second run.
Well, he was 27th at that stage. I think he's done for the day. That's not going to come back to him. He may finish in front of Korea, Slovakia and Australia, but not by much. Still 27th spot, just not finding any speed at the top of the track, and you can't manufacture it down at the bottom. Bruno Mijon, the coach, as Patrice and his crew will be disappointed with that, failing to make the cut. Monaco are slipping slowly but relentlessly down the order from their previous highs in bobsledding.
You know, this S4 corner, the S's are so important, but coming out of that S4 corner down this straightaway, so important for speed and time. And the skids, you can see the snow spraying up behind them. I mean, you're basically pulling the brakes without actually doing it anytime you're not going straight. You know, all that sideways momentum, it just kills time and speed, and you can tell he's just not going to have it for the bottom, and we've got a huge competitive field today.
The 38-year-old Monegasque does not make the cut. The man who stands at the top of the pile is Alexander Zubkov, another 38-year-old, but the soldier from Bratsk had a superb start and a really good run. It's a very tight margin, just 600ths ahead of the best of the German sleds, that of Maximilian Arndt. Nothing here is guaranteed. The Germans may still get the home win that they so desperately desire. Having been beaten by Canada in the 2-man, the German win in the 4-man would go down very well with this Bavarian crew. Let's see what happens in Heat 2. There is your finishing order, and look how close some of these groups of sleds are. There's a tie for 5th position, just a few hundreds between most of them. Tie for 12th place, tie for 17th place in our top 20, and precious little breathing space for anybody that makes the cut. For the remaining 10 sleds, it is time to pack up and think about travel plans across the border into Austria to head to Innsbruck and the Eagles track for next week's World Cup. Well, my thanks to Kaylee Humphries for joining us in the booth. Don't forget, we've got the action coming up from Heat 2 here in Königssee. You can pick it up all live. Don't forget, all the information that you need for bobsleigh and skeleton is on FIBT.com. For a moment, though, from Königssee, from Martin Haven, it's goodbye.